everyone. It's once again Marika from the future here with another spoiler warning, this time for Way of the Househusband, Bakuten or Backflip, and a little bit of Stars Align towards the end of the podcast. We don't give any spoiler warnings in the actual episode for these things, so if you are wanting to avoid spoilers for any of these shows, just skip once we get to talking about them. We do preface each review before it starts. Anyway, have a great day, and let's get into the podcast. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Acid Wash Anime Podcast. I'm your host, Marika, and this is my lovely co-host, Sydney.
Hello.
Together, we make up the bisexual supporting cast, and today, for the third episode in a row, we have a review episode, but this one is a 2-for-1, and we'll briefly focus on Way of the Househusband, and then probably spend the majority of it talking about Bakuten or Backflip. But before we get into that, we have a little bit of an announcement to make, which is that we're going to be taking a month hiatus to catch up on some podcast things. Also, our lives have gotten busy. Also, we have a friend getting married. So, it's just a combination of everything. And we're going to take some time to ourselves and others. So this will be the last podcast for the next month, and we will be back with a new episode, not an anime review, first week in October.
Yeah, we're trying to diversify our content again.
Yeah, we just happened to finish a lot of shows at the same time. We watched a lot of short ones.
Yeah, that's the thing really, is that we happened to finish both of our shows that we had picked at like relatively the same time, and then we also watched 2 really short shows, and so
so we finished a lot at the same time. So let's just start with Way of the Househusband. First off, favorite character.
I don't really know, because I feel like we don't really get to know the characters too much. It's very much like just shorts, little short couple minute episodes. And so I don't really have a gut feeling towards a favorite character. I just kind of enjoy the vibe of the show. But I think I would have to say I like his wife. I think she's cool. I want to know more about her and how, like, I don't know. She's a cool lady. She married a former Yakuza guy. Like, that takes guts, like, probably, like, that's not something.
And seemingly knowingly too. She doesn't seem to bear any like disillusions about what he used to do.
Or like she doesn't seem like she's under like sheep's wool or something, like, right? Have the wool thrown over you, sheep's, like,
you pull the wool over your eyes.
I was trying to I was panicking, and I was like, I know I'm not saying this right, but maybe she'll let it go, and then you didn't, and now I'm embarrassed.
Just really caught me off guard for a second.
Anyway, so she doesn't seem like she's being tricked or fooled, or like she doesn't know who she married, and so I just think she's a cool lady.
Nice.
Yeah. So who's your favorite character?
My favorite character is the guy,
the disciple.
Yeah. I like him. He's just funny. But also I think my real favorite character, but it's not a character, it's like a group of people, is what is it called? The Wives Club, or
the other housewives.
The 2 or 3 others that he does various activities with. I love those scenes when they're all together. And what does he call the main one of them? She's like, I don't remember. I don't know. He had like a name, and that cracked me up as well. So them as like a conglomerate I enjoy them more. But for a favorite character, I love the disciple. I think he's so funny, and I think just him so earnestly like learning how to become a house husband because he thinks it's gonna help him in the Yakuza is such a funny concept.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually wrote that down as one of my talking points, was how much I enjoyed his character and how he just kind of like he runs into his boss, who he's clearly very dedicated to. Like, it's very obvious from our first introduction of him. And he learns that his boss has kind of just turned his entire life upside down from what it used to be, and is completely dedicated and happy with that. And he just rolls with it. He's like, all right, boss, let's go. I still want to learn from you. I'm like all in. Like, I just think that's so funny. I think it's so fun. Like,
Yeah. So your overall thoughts on the show are good?
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely a different structure than what I had thought it was going to be. Like, I don't know anything about the manga or and I didn't know much about the anime going into it. And so I just thought it was like a regular slice of life type of anime.
Right.
And kind of, as I mentioned already, they're more like, so there's like 5 or 6 episodes on Netflix, and that's how we watched it. And so each of those episodes were comprised of lots of tiny shorts. And so that structure wasn't what I expected. And also the animation is kind of different. It was more like animated manga panels sometimes. Like things were like it would flash on like still images up onto the screen and then animate parts of it. Yeah, and so that was like definitely different from what I expected going into it. But it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. And I think that structure kind of lends itself to just giving like peeks into how their life works and all of the kind of shenanigans that he can get into. But I do kind of wish that it was slightly more slice of life, just because I want to know more about like their history and their background.
Yeah, I wish that there was a little bit more of a consistent storyline threading through it as well. I just wanted something more from it. Not a lot more. I didn't want necessarily more depth or like intensity or stakes or anything like that. I just wanted to be able to follow some of the relationship development that goes along through it. And maybe carry that through a little bit more. That would be like my one criticism, is I was like, yeah, I wish they weren't just like a series of shorts. Because it really feels like, honestly, what it reminded me of was kind of like webisodes of stuff. Yeah. Like it felt almost a little bit like Monster High.
Okay.
When they were originally just like web shorts. And they were just kind of like peeks into their like life.
I never watched Monster High, so fine. I'm taking your word for this. But
yeah, I don't really remember it because it's been a while. I know there is probably more of a storyline to that one, but I remember having the same kind of feeling where it's almost hard to like at least for me, it's hard to keep my attention to it. Like this would be a difficult show for me to binge because there's nothing enticing me to continue watching. It was a really good show for us to watch like one a night, which is how we watched it.
Yeah, definitely. And there's like kind of like some threads that they definitely could do, like the introduction of the other like rival Yakuza lady working at the like grocery store.
So funny. I loved that.
Was great.
She seemed like such a badass, but also that situation of her like needing money and just working at the grocery store, and she still had her followers. She was still like, my people rely on me, so I have to provide.
Yeah, she still retained her like dignity, and she was like, don't you dare look down on me. And he's like, dude, I'm a house husband, I don't give a shit. Yeah, I think so there's like definitely threads of that they could like pull at and expand upon, but who knows if they will. Again, it probably just follows more of the same format,
right?
Because there is a manga, but I don't know anything about it, so I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, when I found out that there was a manga, I think this is one that's probably better read than watched, because I feel like those short snippets of stories just lend themselves to read media, because you don't have to essentially waste, I don't really mean the waste in that context, but the time watching it. Like you can consume it much faster, and there's not necessarily any like dramatic moments or tension that feels greater than, because it is animated and happening live, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, but I really liked the humor in it, and just kind of like the absurdity, I guess, of every situation. And one of my favorite recurring moments was like how dramatically he took things. Like if he did something that he like interpreted as wrong, he'd be like, I'll fall on my sword, or like he was like gonna like cut off a finger in payment and stuff, and just like still being in the like kind of Yakuza mentality, but in like the homemaking world. Like it was also just a really funny juxtaposition as well. Like, and every time they kind of like tongue-in-cheek pulled you down the like, oh, is he actually doing like Yakuza things again, like, I think the wife came home. I don't remember anybody's names, but I think when the wife came home and they were like planning something, I don't know, but there was like, he was bleeding, or there was like a knife, and like, I don't know, just anything that makes you like, makes him seem threatening, but then it's actually like kind of innocuous, or like just anything like that. I think they did all of that really, really well.
Yeah. It's a fun little show, and I definitely recommend watching if you're anyone, pretty much. I think like most people could find enjoyment out of it.
Absolutely. Definitely. Yeah.
So scale of 1 to 5, rate it.
Ooh, scale of 1 to 5. I think I'd do like a 3.5.
What a cop out.
I know. I hate myself because I feel like, decimals are cop outs, but I liked it. So 3 for me is liked it. 4 for me is really liked it. And so I just feel like it's caught between there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I would put it at, honestly, I low-key think you're a little bit right, but I would put it at a 3 just because the lack of a single, like, plot line, or even, like, a lack of history. I really wanted to know how the two of them got together.
Yeah.
Because it just seems so strange for her to have met this Yakuza person. Did they meet when he was still there? Had he already left? Like, what is going on there? I just wanted to find that out. So the lack of kind of that string of plot really kept it from being a 4, but in all other respects, it really is good, and I really, really like it, and I think it has a wide potential of appeal.
Definitely, yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts on Way of the Househusband?
Let me check my notes.
Oh, yeah, you're, like, way more prepared than I am for Way of the Househusband.
I mean, really, I jotted down 3 thoughts, and we covered all of them. I also just wanted to say that he drinks his respect women juice.
Yeah. And
not just for his wife. He respects all the women.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
Definitely.
So, yeah, recommend it.
All right. Well, then let's get into Bakuten. So, before I start... I think something that we both pointed out, and I think still holds true for us, is our opinion that it is very similar in tone and plot points to Haikyuu in a lot of ways, like very similar.
Yeah.
So I thought we would play a game where I matched up the Bakuten character with their Haikyuu counterpart.
All right.
And it's called Which One Do You Like Better? Although, asterisk, also let's talk about it a little bit, because I feel like for the most part, we're gonna like the Haikyuu characters better, just because like we're more emotionally invested in that show. So I started with like the captain down, and then we'll just add characters as we go. So first we have, I even practiced saying this too, and now I'm like, I'm paranoid that I'm gonna fuck it up.
The Bakuten captain?
The Bakuten captain.
His name is very long.
Shichigahama. I practice this. Shichigahama.
Okay.
Or Daichi.
I mean, Daichi is like my one true love outside of you, of course.
So. What would Steve Rogers say to that?
What? Oh my gosh, Steve. Okay. Yeah, wow. I forgot Steve for a moment.
The power of Daichi's thighs reveals itself.
Steve, I'm sorry.
Okay, more interesting question.
Yeah.
Daichi or Steve?
Don't make me do that. I'm like blushing. I feel like you can see that my taste in men is like hot and respectful. With Daichi and Steve Rogers. I feel like I have to give it to Steve.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Man,
so Shichigahama or Daichi?
Daichi.
It's Daichi for me too, but a lot closer. I really like his first name isn't that much better either. Shichigahama. I really like him.
Yeah. He's so good. He's so like, I don't know, very very similar to Daichi in respects in the ways that like he kind of holds the team together. He's like their guiding point. And he's just like really solid and dependable in his character. And so I have a lot of like similar feelings towards him as I do about Daichi, and I was noticing that as I was watching the show and trying to suss out my favorite characters, because like I was like, okay, do I like him because I like him, or do I like him because he reminds me of Daichi?
I was having the same thoughts about other people.
Yeah, but I really, really like him.
Yeah, I think he plays a similar role to Daichi. That much is obvious, but I also think that he's a little more like carefree and almost immature. Not that he is an immature character, but he has moments of immaturity that I don't think we really see with Daichi that we do see with him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The next one is our vice captains. It's Tsuki Date and Suga.
Nice. Again, I feel like I have to give it to the Haikyuu characters just because like I don't feel like we know that much about Tsukidate. Like I feel like we don't touch on him as much as like some of the other characters. But he's pretty mild-mannered. Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have much of an impression on him.
Yeah, me neither.
Now
I
that
also
I'm, like,
have to
thinking
give
about
it
it.
to Suga because Suga is also the only Haikyuu character that's legitimately made me cry.
Yeah.
So
and yet you knocked him out of your... Is he still in your top 10?
No, he's not in my
He's
top
not in your top
10.
10, but
he
you
just
cried
doesn't.
over
He just
him.
doesn't inspire great emotions in me outside of canon. But yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, the feels sometimes when
What
watching him.
What is the part that made you cry? I don't remember either. I feel like it's season 1 or 2. I feel like it's earlier on.
I don't remember.
Because then once we get into like other characters, that's when he started like falling more on your list.
Yeah.
I feel like.
I don't remember. It's probably one of the like he's putting his best face forward, but
for the good of the team,
and I don't know, something like that.
Guess we're just gonna have to rewatch it and see if you cry again.
Okay, so the next one was one of the harder ones that I had pairing up because I think this is one of the only, not one of the only characters, but one of the characters that doesn't have the directest link to a Haikyuu character. That's Onagawa,
I was about to say
the blonde one. And I think in terms of what his standing is on the team, he's paired with Asahi.
Okay.
So Onagawa or Asahi?
I think Onagawa.
Wow.
Yeah, going with the Bakuten character. Yeah.
Wow.
Which, so to be fair, Asahi isn't high up on my favorite characters list.
Right.
He's cool. I'm just not really drawn to his character that much. But I do really appreciate art of him in the time skip because his hair is longer and it's always gorgeous when people draw it. But yeah, Onagawa, I think is just like so dynamic and like fun.
Yeah, I love his idol obsession is so funny to me.
He's so cute. Yeah.
I also choose him over Asahi. All right, I have a second question for him.
Okay.
Because what does Onagawa like to do? Give people, or specifically the ace, nicknames.
Yes.
You know who else gives people nicknames?
Oikawa.
Yes. So Onagawa or Oikawa?
Onagawa.
Yeah, see, for me, it's 100% Oikawa. I love Oikawa.
I know, yeah. Again, Oikawa is cool.
I think in terms of personalities, they aren't really similar, but I had to pull through on the nickname.
Yeah, there's the nicknames, and there's definitely like a flamboyant air. If Asahi and Oikawa had a baby, it would probably be very similar to Onagawa.
See, I put Onagawa's actual personality, I made a note, is because I was like, who is he closest to personality-wise? Because I don't really think it's Asahi. And I said he's most like a mashup almost of Suki and Yamaguchi.
Oh, okay.
Because I think he's not as biting or serious as Suki is, but he carries kind of a similar sarcasm, but he also has like that softer side that Yamaguchi has and the insecurities that Yamaguchi had, you know, with his abilities on the team and his place to fit in. You know, Onagawa had that whole plot point with his ankle and everything, and so I felt like he was a I felt like he was a Suki. What the fuck am I trying to say?
Sukiyama.
Thank you. I was trying to.
Were you trying to say Sukiyami?
Yami is where I was going. I feel like he's a Sukiyama baby.
Nice.
I don't know. Thoughts on that?
Do you
agree? Do you agree? Who do you think he's most similar to in Haikyuu?
I was trying to think about that,
I think he's the most unique personality
definitely
in the show.
Yeah. And
in comparison to Haikyuu.
Yeah. And I think his plot point over being the ace, but being overshadowed by Kageyama. What's his name?
His name is
Misato. See, my brain got stuck on Uenoyama, and I was like, no, that's Guitar Kageyama. Yeah, like I just thought that whole plot point of him, and which like, what am I trying to say? I wasn't expecting it to go that route because I don't know. Misato arrives and he's like very clearly skilled and everybody's really happy to have him on the team, but then like delving into, again, I almost said Uenoyama, but for Onagawa this time because they both start with vowels. Anyway, with Onagawa and his like mess up in the first like kind of performance and the reveal that he was the ace and wanted to still be that. I think that was really well done, and I think it does kind of play a similar role to Asahi's role with his like kind of returning into the ace role when he had that whole like Datuko freak out thing and quitting the team. And so yeah, I think you're on point for matching him up with Asahi in terms of like comparing like plot roles. But yeah, I just think he's really, really cool, and I think his kind of attitude towards it all is really refreshing, and yeah, I don't know, I just really like him.
I guess like in some respects he plays a little bit of Suga's whole thing getting replaced by the younger thing, but they address that really differently because he's not, I mean, his position as quote unquote ace is taken, but he's not like kicked off the team.
Yeah, none of them are on the bench
performing. Yeah, so it's, I guess, a little bit lower stakes in that in that respect. So you don't get quite the same emotional pull with it, which allows for just a more lighthearted like acceptance of this new talent, which I think is just an interesting angle that we didn't see played out in Haikyuu.
Yeah.
All right, next up, Wataru or Tanaka?
Tanaka.
Yeah, Tanaka 100%. Yeah. But Wataru, I do love him, and he would knock some Haikyuu characters off if compared with them.
Yeah, he's an absolute gem. Yeah. He's a darling, and I adore him.
And I love that he is good at cooking.
Yeah.
That makes me so happy. I'm like, yes, please.
Check that off the husband material list.
Yeah, right? Yeah. And his hair is super cool.
His hair is really cool.
You know, if we're judging based on hair alone, it's definitely Wataru over Tanaka. And, you know, I didn't want to like him because his name is Wataru. Yeah. But on the plus side, we have now found a Wataru that doesn't suck.
Oh my god. We're gonna get some Wataru super fan like boycotting our show. but yeah, Wataru in Bakuten, he's just really cool, and like he's really similar to Tanaka in the way that he's like, he watches like action movies and he's like about being manly, and he's pretty loud and aggressive, and he's kind of like, he has like piercings in his ears and stuff, and so he's kind of more like punky or rebellious. But I don't know, he just even though they're really similar, he has a different feel than Tanaka does.
Yeah, I agree.
I can't quite put my finger on why that is, but yeah, he's just a delight.
All right, then we have our main characters, Shotaro or Hinata.
I feel like I have to give it, oh god, this is really close for me, I think.
Wow, I wasn't expecting it to be so close.
Yeah, but it hurts me. No, I don't know.
All right, well, for me, it's Hinata.
Okay, yeah.
But also, I was not as attached to Shotaro as you obviously are. I'm surprised that this is giving you this much of a struggle.
Yeah. I think I have to go with Hinata.
Yeah, but
it hurts
talk
me.
through your process.
Well, we're going to talk through other things later.
Okay.
So, Hinata's story just gives me like, I feel like it's because we know, like, Haikyuu, the manga, is like complete and finished, and like we know how it ends. We know Hinata's whole story. And so Bakuten, I'm assuming there is a manga. I haven't really looked into it.
I have no clue.
But the anime only has like 12 episodes. We haven't really finished a complete arc really yet. And so I think just knowing Hinata's journey and his character and like just how genuine and how hardworking he is to reach his like dreams and goals, like I think he's just such a good character. And so I think if Bakuten, if I knew more about where they go and like if I saw more of that journey, maybe I would have a stronger pull to Shotaro. But it's gonna be Hinata.
Wow, that's interesting because that's like a completely different reasoning for me, just because where Hinata ends up holds no real effect on how much I like him as a character. That journey or whatever that you were saying being complete doesn't even cross my mind. I just like Hinata because I like his attitude, and He's upbeat, and I think he's just a little more like energetic, high energy than Shotaro, which makes me like him more.
Mm-hmm.
And Hinata is one of my favorite characters in Haikyuu too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's interesting that you look at like the complete piece of media for that feeling and that connection with him, and I absolutely do not.
Yeah, well, it's not even just like I would still like Hinata even if he didn't end up where he does. It's just like when I think about Hinata, like his hard work and perseverance and like just how that has played out through his life just makes my heart glow. And so that's what I mean when I say his like journey. But I like
Shotaro doesn't do that for you?
Not yet, but he is an absolute darling.
What if you didn't know anything about time skip? Haikyuu.
I think I would probably still lean on Hinata because what I was about to say was that even before we knew time skip spoilers and things, I just think he's like, I just love Hinata so much. He works so hard, and yeah.
All right, Misato or Kageyama?
Kageyama.
Yeah, Kageyama.
Kageyama is my second favorite character in Haikyuu. Sorry, no, third favorite character. I was blanking because I was like, he's gone up and down in things. But yeah, so he was my second favorite for a little while, but he's my third favorite because I love Yachi so much. But I do really like Misato. I think he's like kind of a different take on the genius character, because I feel like typically when we see genius characters, they tend to be stuck up about it, and he's like not. Like, he's kind of stuffy and like socially awkward, but once he gets over that, he's like all about, like, he helps and he's like willing to help. And
yeah, but couldn't you say the same thing about Kageyama?
You could, but I think
like he ran up to Suga at one point and was like, I'm not trying to just take this because I think I'm all that. Like,
that's true.
Whatever. And that was before his whole King revolution too. I think he's always been open-minded to learning from people, or not assuming that people are beneath him. Well, not always, I guess.
Not always.
Misato's a little nicer than Kageyama.
Yeah, Misato's like just like softer, and
he is
like, I think it also kind of plays, like, the difference plays out in Misato and Shotaro's relationship compared to Kageyama and Hinata's relationship, and how like closer, or not necessarily closer, but just like friendlier they are to each other than Kageyama and Hinata are.
Yeah, Kageyama and Hinata have a lot more extremes. They have like extreme highs together and extreme lows, where Shotaro and Misato are more consistent.
Yeah.
Not like one note or flat necessarily, but just overall a little bit more consistent.
Yeah, and I think it also just kind of has to do with the premise of like Hinata and Kageyama start their relationship as rivals, and they seek to maintain that even though they're on the same team. They're like, oh, like, I still need to get better so I can beat you someday and all of that. And so even though they do like become friends and they're like really good teammates and they enjoy working together, there's still that like tension of like, I want to beat you someday, whereas Shotaro and Misato just don't have that, and so they're just like, we're in this together and we're gonna help each other and be friends.
Right.
And,
so. You're definitely right. So next I have Kurikoma or Kyoko.
I don't know, what's yours?
I think Kyoko still.
Yeah,
but it's close.
Yeah,
it's closer, and I think that could change with more screen time and more background from Kurikoma.
Yeah, because she's really cute, but we just don't really know a whole lot about her.
Yeah.
And then Kyoko, similar to Asahi, she's pretty low on my favorites list. Like, she's cool, I just don't have like a strong pull towards her in any regard. And so these are really close for me, but I think just out of affection for Haikyuu, I think it's Kyoko. Right.
And then I know the answer already, but Kurikoma or Yachi.
Yachi.
Yeah, Yachi all the way.
Hands down, Yachi. I adore her.
Yeah, you adore her. I love her. It just goes to her.
It's Yachi.
All right. Shida or Ukai?
Ukai.
Yeah, Ukai, but honestly, it would have been Shida if that whole injury thing hadn't happened.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
With having Shotaro
perform even on the injury, and we'll get into that a little bit more, but I really don't like the angle that they took with that, and I don't like that he just endorsed that, especially after his background.
Yeah.
So that one moment just pulled me away, and I'm like, Yukai never did that.
And he would never. Like,
yeah, and he would not. I don't see him ever risking
like,
the health. Like when Daichi got hit in the face, he was like, "You're out.
Yeah,
You're going to the doctor."
It's like a slightly different situation because like they did have to send Daichi off, and he is like one of their absolute strongest players. But they have like bench players to stick in, so it's not like they were going to be down. So it's not like they had a 6-person or a 7-person team and
but
would be lacking on the court in the same way.
But yeah. I kind of see what you're coming from, but I mean, I think part of the whole point of that episode was like the team was weaker without him, or like Inoshiro really had to step up to like make up for that difference. And so yeah, it's not like the automatic point deduction, but not having Daichi in there put them at risk for like losing, a much greater risk for losing than before. And it would like he could have kept him in. He said he felt fine, but he didn't. And yeah, I just that moment tipped me to Ukai. All right, Shida or Takeda?
Takeda.
Yeah. Takeda as well.
Takeda.
He's so
good.
He's so do anything for the team.
So genuine and caring.
All right. Then I had, oh my God, did I not write it down? Oh, I didn't write down his name. Captain of their rival team.
Okay, yeah.
And Kuro was going to be the next one.
Whoa. I mean, Kuro.
Yeah.
But rival team captain is also very good.
All right. Rival team captain and Shichigahama as a couple, as a pairing, versus Kurodai.
Don't do that to me. It has to be Kurodai because I would die for them. But Shichigahama and rival captain are absolutely in love.
Yeah.
Like, holy cow. Like, there is tension like none other between them. And like take Kurodai tension, which is there. It's a serious vibe. And just amp that up a few notches, and you've got Shichigahama and the rival captain.
Yeah, they're really out here carrying the ships for Bakuten.
Yeah, like I wasn't really shipping anyone until they got introduced, and I was like, wow. They're married. They don't know it yet, but they're already married.
Right. And then the next one I actually thought of before I thought of the rival team captain and Kuro comparison, so it's not just because of that, because I was thinking Mashiro, and I was like, who's Mashiro most like? Because he's also kind of a unique personality. But I paired him with Kenma because he has kind of almost the same disinterest, except for his like one rival makes him like interested and strive to do better. So I think in terms of their dedication to the sport, they share that same, are motivated by someone on the main team.
Yeah, I think I would argue that Mashiro is fairly internally motivated for gymnastics more than Kenma is towards volleyball, because like Mashiro clearly wanted to do volleyball, like outside of...
You mean gymnastics?
Yes. Mashiro wanted to do gymnastics outside of anyone like getting him into it. Like he chose to join it. He was enthusiastic about it.
Was he?
Yeah, like he saw them doing flips and stuff, and then he was like, cool, I want to do that. And then he did it, and then he was super good at it. I'm like 90% sure.
I don't know if I remember that the same. I remember him getting into it because of Misato. Not that Misato was encouraging him, but like he saw Misato and then wanted to join because of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like he saw gymnastics and then...
Yeah, but that's a difference for me. He didn't just see gymnastics like it, like Shotaro did. He saw Misato.
Okay. Well, I'm thinking of the differences in like Kuro literally like dragged Kenma into playing volleyball.
I guess, but then Kenma learns to like volleyball.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
I disagree. We just don't see eye to eye on that.
All right, cool. But yeah, I think Mashiro and Kenma are similar, just kind of in the way of like they're connected. They have a friendship with like the main character of their rival team, and I feel like they kind of have similar personalities. Like they're quiet, they're a little weird. But I I think I'd go with Kenma still.
Yeah, come on, 100%.
Oh yeah, there was no question in my mind about which way you would go on that one.
You've never asked me once what my favorite one is. I've had to jump in every time.
I'm sorry. Mashiro, he's cool. Again, kind of a different take on the genius character. Like, he's like on Misato's level without having quite as much experience as Misato.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but he's really casual about it. Like, he doesn't brag about it.
I guess, but I don't know. He's casual about it in a way that doesn't speak of humility to me. Like, he's casual about it in a way that, like, almost takes it for granted. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's almost annoying. Like, there's people who are really talented who are, like, humble in a way that's like, wow, that's really great. And he's, like I said, it's almost like he takes it for granted.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be really frustrating, I think.
Yeah. Like, he's like, oh, yeah, I can do these things.
What? Like, it's hard?
the Elle Woods of gymnastics.
All right, final one. Mabuchi, who is the rival team's coach.
Oh, okay.
Or Nekomata.
Nekomata
for me too, but it's also very, very close.
Yeah.
I really like the peer into the coach's, Shida's backstory and his change and growth that we get through that coach.
Yeah.
And I like the advice that he gives that coach. I think that is a really nice and refreshing angle. I think it's kind of cool that we see a little more development with Shida as a person than we do Ukai, and Mabuchi is kind of like a vessel for that to happen with, or not for it to happen, but for us to see it happen.
Mm-hmm. I don't really have anything to add, I don't think. I like Nekomata just because he's funny and he's chill and he cares about the boys.
Yeah.
And then, what's his name? Mabuchi, yeah. Mabuchi. Yeah, he's cool. I like that he is helping, like, because they're like friends from like college. Yeah, or high school. I think. High school. Yeah. I think that's an interesting take. It's like if Nekomata and Ukai Senior in their younger years being friends and rivals at the same time. So yeah.
Nice. All right, it's time to get down to business.
All right.
Top 3, go.
Okay.
Starting from 3.
Okay. Let me figure it out for a second.
I asked you before the podcast started.
And then I didn't write it down.
If you need to go 1, 2, 3, you can go 1, 2, 3.
No. So 3, Watery. 2, Onagawa. I almost said Uenoyama again. I was like, you gotta
Who's
stop.
Who's your favorite character? Your character. Who's your favorite Gavin character? Go.
Uenoyama. No, I don't know. Maybe Mafuyu. I don't know. Anyway, we're not doing a Given review.
We could.
We could. I would want to rewatch it though, because I don't remember a lot of it. Stop. Stop. Yeah, if we rewatch it, we're skipping those scenes. Anyway, back to Bakuten. And then number 1 for me is Shotaro. And that's why I had trouble picking between Hinata and Shotaro, because Hinata's like number 6 on my top 10, but Shotaro is my favorite character from this show. And so that's like, I was like, at first I was like, I feel like I have to give it to Shotaro because he is my favorite character from this one.
Right.
But then I kept thinking about Hinata and my heart hurt. And so I was like, and then I had to actually like look at myself. And so then I had to give that to Hinata. But I do love Shotaro. Or is Misato in my top 3? I don't know. No. I'm sticking with Watari, Onagawa, and Shotaro.
Now you can never change it again.
Oh, no.
I'm kidding.
That's how it feels. That's how it feels every time I say, like, a favorite character. I feel like I have to stick to my guns.
You don't. You can change it anytime you
want.
want.
I know, but it feels like a betrayal.
I mean, only when it was Todoroki, because you're birthday twins. And
you continue to make me feel bad about it, giving me trauma for that every new time.
Hey, you think I'm giving you trauma? How do you think it feels to be Todoroki, face half burnt off by his own mom, and then his own birthday twin removes him from his favorites for who? For Kirishima.
Kiri. No, I love Todoroki so much, though. Oh my goodness. Anyway, who are your top 3 favorite characters?
My top 3, starting with number 3, Shichigahama.
Okay, yeah.
Love him. He was my number 1 for a while, but the other 2 crept up. Number 2, Shida, even though he pulled that stunt.
Oh.
He's still in there. I really, really like him.
Damn.
I do really like him.
He's really cool.
I just think that was a fucking stupid plot point. I don't even think it's a stupid plot point. I just think the messaging behind it was stupid.
Yeah, the way they handled it the episode after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they, like, turned it out to be this overall positive thing where I really see that as a failure of coaching and, like, a failure of...
being the adult.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think there should have been more, like, regret at play, or, like, when he came back and it turns out he can't be on his arm for another month, like, a serious wake-up call, or, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Not a, but, like, I went all out, and he can go all out, and you have to make whatever.
Yeah, and then, honestly, the, like, external validation that he got from that other teacher guy was really bad.
And from the fucking parents. If I was a parent, and I found out the coach let my kid... like go out and perform like something as dangerous as rhythmic gymnastics with an injury that could potentially get worse and could potentially take him out of the sport for the rest of his life, like I'd be furious.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but then they like pass it off as like, oh well, like he wanted to, didn't he? And
yeah,
it's like
kids want to do shit all the time that's not good for them. That's why they're kids, and that's why they have adults around. Yeah, that really pissed me off. But
yeah, I
do really like him. Outside of that, I think he's great, and he just brings me a lot of joy when I see him, except for when he's being a fucking dumbass. And then my number 1, of course, is Watery himself. I also suffered with, do I like him because of his character, or do I like him because he's like Tanaka? Because I love Tanaka. He was my favorite Haikyuu character for a long time. Yeah, he was originally lower down on my list, but then as I kept watching, I was like, no, I just fucking love Watery. He's so great. And so I bumped him up.
Nice.
But I will say that, what's his name? White guy? Mashiro. Now that I put away my list, I had a list in front of me and I put it away now. And so now I'm not going to be able to remember anyone's name. Anyway, he intrigues me. I don't know if he'll ever be a favorite of mine, but I like seeing his character. And I also really like that he has become more interested in, Shotaro as a competitor and kind of as a rival. I like that shift towards seeing him as someone, because like we kind of previously said, or like I previously said, how I interpret his character is that he's really motivated by Misato and that sense of competition there, and now he's almost receiving that same sense of motivation and competition from Shotaro, which I think is really interesting. I think is also a little bit of like main character syndrome with that, because realistically speaking, I don't think Shotaro is like that special enough that someone as talented as Mashiro would take notice. But that's something I can totally suspend my disbelief on.
Yeah.
Which this show kind of requires.
Absolutely requires you to suspend your disbelief.
The amount that Shotaro just is able, and I know they try to justify it with he was in other sports and he's like kind of an athletic kid, but he was also on the bench for all of those other sports.
Yeah.
And I don't care how athletic you are, when like flipping and gymnastics is on like a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Like sure, you can do a backflip, learn how to do a backflip in a day probably if you're athletic. Like I've seen the TikToks of people learning how to do that. But becoming proficient enough to perform an entire rhythmic gymnastics routine is something completely.
Yeah, it's like the combination of like, so physical strength, which like cool, that can probably be achieved by like just being in other sports practices, fine. But then just the sheer amount of body control that you have to have in gymnastics, like I just don't think that can be like trained through other methods.
He should have, what they should have done is had him have like yoga as a hobby.
Yeah, or like
because not only would that lend itself to flexibility, but also with the body control, something that when I first started, I don't consistently do yoga, especially not right now, but but I have on and off for a while. And when I first started doing it, one of the things when like instructors kind of guide you through it is just like that I noticed that was a great benefit for me was bringing like awareness to parts of your body that you might not be aware of. And so they'll have you in this position and then they'll be like, notice where this is, or notice where this is, or how you're holding your weight here. And it's like, oh yeah, I forgot to focus on it. And that's something that I took away from that. And I try to apply when I'm doing other types of exercise and be like, okay, really focus, like, how is my breathing right now? How is this and this and this? And I think that is the type of body control and awareness that you're kind of talking about right there, where it's just like, it's an uninstinctual, like, usage of your brain to think about how you're positioning every part of your body, especially when there's such an emphasis in rhythmic gymnastics. Apparently we're not experts on it.
Yeah,
we just
not.
know what the show has explained to us, basically. But there seems to be such an emphasis on the artistic expression of it as well, and that also requires just an awareness.
Yeah, and like there is bodily control in other sports. Like you have to get your body to places, like in order to be proficient you need to set up your body to be in certain ways and like things like that. But a lot of the times it's like you hit the ball,
right,
and you're good. But like there's almost no just skating by managing to hit the ball in gymnastics, because you have to match everyone. You have to like control yourself in exactly the right way. And yeah, so definitely suspension of disbelief with this show,
but it's still an engaging story.
Definitely. I think it touches on not darker but slightly more serious like themes than Haikyuu does, just in terms of like, or at least it has the potential to, like, there was kind of the hints that Misato's home life isn't the same as everyone else's, because like he wasn't able to move into the dorms right away with everyone. Yeah, just like kind of like little things like that. That's the only one that I'm remembering right now, but yeah, has the potential to be slightly more slice of life than your average sports anime, or at least delve more into personal stories more than like Haikyuu did.
Right. Well, yeah, compared to Haikyuu, definitely.
But
I mean, if you're talking darkness, stars align.
Stars align, yeah. That's knocked it out of the park. But that'll be a future episode.
Yeah. I do really like, it makes me wonder how common sports dorms and the concept of that is in high school in Japan, because I do really like that aspect. I think it's always just fun to have kids, or not even necessarily kids, but whoever your story is about, and frequently that is younger people, like rooming together or living together, because it just means that more potential for conflict, more potential for intrigue, and just more time spent together that can become part of the story.
Yeah.
So I really liked the aspect of the sports dorms and just having them all together and seeing how they function like that. That was really fun.
Yeah. And I also just like the potential for like domestic stuff to happen.
Yeah.
Like, and like same thing with like My Hero Academia, like all of them living in a dorm together. Like maybe they have like Friday movie nights with like popcorn and like who knows, and like they obviously have like they take turns on chores and stuff, and they share rooms together, and so that I think like excites me a lot more personally than just like with Haikyuu, like just seeing them at practice. Like they're friends, like they get along, like they probably like hang out at each other's houses sometimes, or like have a party every now and then, but we just don't see that. We only see it in relation to volleyball. Whereas like My Hero and Bakuten, with the addition of them like all living together, we get to see more sides of them outside of just their main, what they're supposed to be doing. And so that's, yeah, it's fun. I really like it.
Right. Yeah, I know we're comparing it a lot to Haikyuu, but I think that's because like the tone of them is so similar. I mean, you already kind of have a lot of the characters with similar-ish personalities, not exactly the same, but very similar personalities, and you have, you know, the main character completely new to the sport but passionate about it, and the character that's kind of like a child prodigy who's also a first year, and they have to get along and like figure out how to work together. It's a team sport, so you have that collaborative effort that's all together, and overall it just feels very, very, very similar. So I think it just lends itself to that comparison, because I mentioned like briefly Stars Align. That's what we're watching right now, which is another sports anime, this time soft tennis, and also middle school. But like that feels completely different. Like the characters are completely different, the storyline is completely different. Its similarity is that it's a sports anime and competition is inherent there. But even though they have like a newer player and a more experienced player, it's still just vibes are different. But Bakuten and Haikyuu definitely have the same vibes. I remember seeing a TikTok where someone was recommending Bakuten, and they were like, it's like gymnastics Haikyuu, and they were right. It really feels that way. So I don't think, and I don't know why, I don't think it's as emotionally impactful as Haikyuu. And I know we have less of it, but still, after one season of this show, I'm less invested in the characters than I was after one season of Haikyuu. I was already all in, you know what I mean? But I think it's still a well put together, the whole of it is still done well and put together well. And so I don't want to fault it for that. Yeah. But I just did want to make a note of it because it's very much there. I think the similarities are there, and I think it's even better of like a comparison to Haikyuu than fucking what was the other volleyball anime that we wanted? Yeah, Sane.
I want to talk about that more later.
Oh yeah? We'll talk about it now.
No, that's my Sydney segment.
Oh, okay. Just kidding. But yeah, like, because Sane, I think, was trying to hit like the same notes as Haikyuu, and it just did it terribly. And was just not a good show overall, whereas this is very successfully hitting similar notes as Haikyuu. And I don't know when Bakuten came out. I don't know if the author was inspired by Haikyuu. Like, I don't know any of that, but it feels so similar. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I think part of the emotional impact has to do with just, like, the way that the sport is done. With, like, rhythmic gymnastics, like, you've got the one performance. And so, like, things can happen in the performance that give like gravity or like make you gasp or like make you tense, but then it's the performance, and it's just focusing on that team. Whereas with Haikyuu and the volleyball games, like you've got both teams going at it at the same time, and so you can have like, and there's like in a volleyball game there's inherent like stop and go. Whereas the performance, like, you start it and you finish a performance and then it's done. And, like, and the performance itself is the length of a song. It's, like, a few minutes. Whereas the game, you've got longer to do with it. And then, like, the stop and go allows you to have, like, pauses for, like, character backstory to be interspersed within the games, which can then lend it emotional levity and impact to what's happening in the game itself, and just things like that. And with that, we get to see a lot more in terms of like, because like they have to play multiple teams, whereas when you do the one performance and then the other team does their performance, and at the end you get your scores.
I think that's a really interesting point, that like within the games themselves in Haikyuu, you're just able to experience more and therefore be attached to more and find out more. There's more room for backstories and getting that emotional connection solidified. You're so right.
Yeah. But something that I found interesting about Bakuten is we don't really get any like tension or like characters that don't like each other in our teams. And whereas like, and that probably has to do with just it's a smaller crew. Like you've got the 6 versus the 12 on in like Krasno for Haikyuu. But you don't really have like Tsukushima and Kageyama hating each other, or really Tsukushima hating almost everyone. And so there's never really, I was waiting for that to happen, like some sort of like, oh, they're gonna have to learn how to get along, but everybody like gets along from the
Right.
start. Like, some people are thrown off by others. Like Misato doesn't appreciate the nicknames that Onagawa gives him, or Shotaro's kind of thrown off by Wateri's action movies and posters when they first lived together and stuff. But like, yeah, so nobody doesn't get along, which I find cool as well. It's definitely just gives it like a more, like, not cheerful, because Haikyuu is cheerful,
Right.
but just kind of a more, slightly more upbeat or like rosy tone to it. So
an easier tone almost.
Yeah. So that was something else that I noticed.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, now I'm gonna ask you, on a scale of 1 to 5, where do you put Bakuten?
4.
Yeah, same, solid 4.
Yeah, really like it.
Yeah, it is a good above average anime. I recommend it. Check
And
it out.
I miss them. Like, I knew it was one season, but I thought it was like a 20-something episode season. It's actually like 12 eepisodes.
Yeah.
And so it ended, and I was like, ooh, like, let's fit one more episode in today. And there was no more episodes to fit in. And I was very sad. Because it's like we're kind of in the middle of an arc. Like, it's kind of a resolved note, but there's still definitely more that needs to be handled.
Right. Like, they ended their competition at that point, but they're now moving on to the next string, the next level of competition, and that was their main goal. They're looking forward,
so.
and Misato has to deal with his
conflict.
Shotaro has to deal with his injury now, and how are they going to go compete when he hasn't been practicing because he has to be off it for a month because they let him compete with an injury.
But yeah, so like that happened, and then it was like, that's it. And I was just sad, and I was like, I miss them. Like, I really miss them already.
Yeah.
And so yeah, they're definitely good characters, good show.
All right, so what do you have for Sydney's segment?
For Sydney's segment, so kind of backflipping off of Bakuten. So while we were watching Bakuten, I was thinking a lot about Sane and why it was hitting better than or why Bakuten was hitting better than Sane. And I don't know. I don't really have any concrete thoughts because it's been a long time since we've watched Sane, and I don't ever want to rewatch it.
Right.
But I think it's interesting, and kind of watching Stars Align now and having it have darker tones as well is also making me think of Sane, because Sane kind of tried to do that.
Right.
But it also abandoned those plot lines.
Yeah, and just didn't. Yeah, I think the abandonment of the plot lines really like suckered it in, because it was just like really serious stuff that went literally nowhere and had no impact on the plot. And it's like, okay, well, why even include this? Like, it didn't even really lend itself to character development, which I think it's more doing in Stars Align.
Yeah, because like, so in Sane, they've got like, you've got the whole thing with the main character's cousin, and like, he literally got beat up by some guys, and main character had to like run away from it, that way he wouldn't be caught in the thing, and then therefore be like caught fighting or involved in a fight and not allowed to compete. And then that was literally never touched on again. It was like super serious. It ended the episode, he was running away in fear, like he's clearly kind of like guilty for leaving his cousin to go get beat up, and then we don't ever hear any results of that again. And then we also have like blonde, like Tsukishima character, cross between Tsukishima and Kageyama, the other main character, and his whole kind of like secret backstory from junior high, or like elementary school, I don't quite remember. I think junior high.
Yeah.
And like how it's a trigger warning for talk of suicide. It was like implied that he caused someone to try to commit suicide. It was kind of implied that it actually like went through, but then we find out it didn't happen, or it wasn't even quite that wasn't quite what happened after all. But yeah, like two very serious notes and plot lines, and then like we kind of get some resolution on Tsukishima character's thing. Blonde genius character.
Yeah, I really can't remember his name.
Yeah, I don't remember any of their names. But so we kind of get some resolution on that, but it was really dissatisfying. And basically the guy just wanted an out to quit volleyball. Like, he just turned out to not like it anymore, but he didn't just want to quit, and so he ended up like he ended up kind of almost concocting this story and then blaming this guy for it, which is awful. But he just wanted to quit volleyball. He was like, yeah, I just actually didn't want to do it anymore, and so this gave me an out. And so it was just awful and didn't really lend any resolution to the blonde character's thing. It just kind of made him angry, which, and then there wasn't really any lesson learned from that.
I don't remember any of this, but what you're saying, I'm totally on board with.
And so, like, so that stuff kind of came out of, like, it was, like, implied in, like, the first couple episodes, and it was, like, really intriguing. Like, I think they laid the groundwork really well, and I was like, okay, like, this is interesting. Like, it's a volleyball anime, but it's gonna take on, like, some more serious, like, plot lines and, like, maybe some more personal stuff. But then it just absolutely fell through and was not handled well at all. And then it also just dealt with, like, getting them to high school and getting them together really poorly as well, because it kind of starts with them in junior high and then half develops that team, and then they end up in high school, and we don't even really get to know the high school, like, their teammates either, like, which is a disservice and made us not feel connected to them. Whereas, like, I think Bakuten did a really good job of introducing the teammates. And
yeah, you totally feel connected to all of the characters on the Bakuten team.
Yeah, like, really quickly too. Whereas, and I don't know quite why, but with Sane, like, we get an introduction to captain and vice captain, and I liked them. And we're, like, very briefly introduced to the other players.
Yeah, you really don't get to know anyone
at
else
all.
that well at all.
Yeah,
like I had the guy that was the rugby guy.
He's the only other one I remember.
He's the only other one I remember, and I thought I was gonna really like him because his introduction seemed really solid, and he seemed like a very interesting character, and he was voiced by the same voice actor who voiced Tendo. But then you literally never saw him again. Like, you saw him because he was playing, but you didn't see any part of his personality ever again. Not, like, let alone a backstory, but, like, you didn't see them ever, like, interact or have any emotions or, like, whatever. Yeah. And it is really interesting to kind of compare it to, what is the tennis one again?
Stars Align.
Yeah, it is really interesting to compare it to Stars Align, because Stars Align also gives you a bit of emotional whiplash in that it'll, like, kind of trauma dump pretty serious things really out quickly. Of nowhere. But I'm, like, not mad at it for it.
Yeah, it, like, handles it.
Yeah, which I don't really know why. Like, again, this is something I can't really put into words, because I feel like on paper Stars Align should suffer from some of the same issues that Sane did, but it doesn't. And I think it's just because all of the issues that are happening are giving so much enrichment to the characters that it's, like, justifying it almost.
Yeah, it's giving character development. The characters are actually dealing with it, first of all, too. Like, the plots aren't just being, like, dropped. And then it's also being given its proper weight. Whereas, like, the, like, cousin beat up thing, that's literally never talked about again. Like, I think the other cousin, like, is with him in the hospital maybe for, like, a second. Like, there's, like, a mention of it, but, like, there's no repercussions. Like, the cousin kind of comes back. I think the cousin comes back at the end, but they're, like, chill with each other again, even though they were, like, fighting right before that. But yeah, there's, like, it's just not given its proper weight. And so even though it had potential and they kind of set up, like, oh shit, like, this is gonna have, like, emotional repercussions, it doesn't. Like, whereas with Stars Align, like, it's affecting them in practice, it's affecting, like, their relationship with each other and things like that. And so it's just, like, stuff I've been thinking about lately. And, like, even, like, the introduction of the teams, like, the teammates, we get introduced to the soft tennis team pretty quickly. It was kind of overwhelming, and, like, I don't really remember anyone's names, but I'm starting, like, when they say the names, I'm starting to be like, oh, right, that's that one. And
yeah, I don't remember anyone's names, but that's completely normal for me.
Yeah. but I'm starting to put them together, and I'm starting to recognize, like, oh, that's that one, that's the quiet one, that's the loud one. And we get to know them more. Just like they're given their proper weight in the story,
Right.
whereas Insane they just weren't. And then something else is like the development of the rival team.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Insane, I think it's like the last 5 episodes or something, like
Yeah, I don't remember.
towards the end we meet the rival team,
Mm-hmm.
and then they're given so much better backstory,
Yeah,
and like
a really
development.
compelling one.
Yeah.
And a really compelling relationship between the kind of main ace player and the manager.
Absolutely, yeah. And so then we were rooting for the rivals to win because we just had more emotional connection to their story and their struggles. And so where we're at in Stars Align, we kind of just met their rival team. They've had a strong introduction so far, mostly the one guy who has talked down to them at the very end of that episode. But yeah, so far I'm having more faith in Stars Align to follow through on these things than Sane did.
Yeah, but I don't even think like a strong rival team is necessarily necessary.
Yeah.
Because I think they've set up enough development within their own team that even if the rival team falls flat, like that's okay. Or even if it's just a springboard for them to be even more motivated, I think that's okay.
Yeah, definitely. But it's kind of giving me validation in the way that, because like going from Haikyuu to watching another volleyball anime, of course you're going to compare it. Haikyuu is so big that pretty much every sports anime is going to get compared to it, as we have done in this episode. But watching it, like we really tried to keep an open mind. We were like, this isn't going to be Haikyuu. It's probably not going to be as good as Haikyuu.
You're talking about.
Yes, I'm talking about Sane, yeah. So we went into it with that like mindset, and then things were just not being good, and so we couldn't tell at first if it was just that it wasn't as good as compared to Haikyuu and we were just coming off of that, or if it was just legitimately not good.
I didn't like it from the from pretty much the beginning. But also like the more serious points, that just tends not to be what I gravitate towards. So I was already kind of not feeling it in that respect, and then once they just truly ended up going nowhere with it, it was just all down the hill from there.
Yeah, but I just appreciate the fact that like there are stories that have similar like kind of setups or premises to Haikyuu that can be done well. And so that's just kind of nice for me to like see and recognize that, yeah, like Sane really just absolutely did miss the mark, but it doesn't mean that all animes with that kind of like setup will miss the mark. And so
yeah, honestly, I think it's really a testament to Haikyuu of how connected people are to it and its characters and the story, with how much it truly focuses just on the volleyball. And I'm not saying that is necessarily a pro or a con in terms of what makes a story quote unquote good. Obviously there's good ways to tell these sports stories with a lot of outside of the sport storylines and impact, and good ways to tell it with minimal amounts of that. But you know, the fact that Haikyuu really doesn't have anything to do with anything that's not directly affecting the team, but it still is compelling and engaging, like really speaks, I think, to Furudate's sense of what am I trying to say, like dynamics within the sport and understanding of the allure of it, and how to translate his very obvious love for the sport in a way that makes other people connected to it as well.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's just something I've been thinking about a lot lately, is comparing to Sane and that experience.
Yeah, it is interesting that you brought it up, because I was thinking about Sane more in relationship to Stars Align because of the really heavy topics that Stars Align is dealing with. Because you know, I did mention, and I did feel like a little bit disappointed that the show was started off with such heavy stuff to do with is it the cousin or
it's his
uncle?
cousin.
It's his cousin?
Yeah.
Because that type of plotline just really doesn't interest me for the most part. But I think, you know, it had the potential there to bring in a really different, really dynamic element that could be interesting to explore and could be up other people's alleys. And it didn't do that, like we've stated. And so it's been interesting to watch a show kind of more successfully do that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, it still doesn't necessarily feel naturally integrated in Stars Align, but
Yeah,
Again,
it
I'm
definitely
not mad at it.
it definitely just drops it like a hammer. Like,
yeah. Which, to be fair, traumatic events oftentimes are just dropped like a hammer in your
yeah,
lap.
they are not always delicately woven into the plotline of your life.
Right.
So, probably more realistic there, I guess.
All right, final thoughts on Bakuten or Househusband or Stars Align or Haikyuu?
Watch them all. Recommend every single one.
Yeah, recommend every single one of them and skip Sane.
Yes.
All right, well, I think that's bringing our episode to a close. Follow us at Acid Wash Pod on Twitter and TikTok. We don't have anything posted there yet, but hopefully by the time you're listening to this, we will. And remember, we are taking a month-long break. We will be back technically the second week in October, the first full week in October, October 8th. And I think we're going to do, I have an idea for our first welcome back episode. It's something gamey. It's something we've talked about. It's something fun. And it's something to do with Haikyuu.
Classic.
On brand. So look forward to that. It'll deal with shipping and debates.
Ooh, I'm excited.
So, so in the meantime, listen to us wherever you find your podcasts, preferably Spotify, and as always, fuck Google Podcasts.
You need to stop.
Bye-bye.
Bye.